Yeah, what's up, everyone? This is Matt FACK from the Omnific here, the two bass band. We've got a new album coming out called The Law of Augmenting Returns, which is coming on June 7th. And yeah, can't wait for that to be out. I'll throw it back to Chris.
Beautiful, mate. Thanks for joining us today, mate.
Oh, pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here.
Now, I've got to say straight off the bat, mate, I love the album title, The Law of Augmenting Returns. Like, it just flows off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah. It was yeah, a lot of like thought went into that because the whole concept was like, well, the law of diminishing returns seems to be like a pretty common concept, mainly I guess in like the commerce world, but in life when you think about it, I guess like the more you do something, the less like return you get from that. So I was like trying to think like what could we sort of I guess do to like be like what's the opposite? Like the more you do something, the more reward you get out of it. And like I guess augmenting also relates to music, like diminished to augmented. So I was like that fits to music as well. And yeah, it's I guess you can say it's got some cool meaning to it.
It has, and I reckon there's probably 75% of people out there that listen to music will have no fucking idea what it means.
They can learn something new every day then.
So, The Law of Augmenting Returns is your sophomore album, mate, and it's coming out on June the 7th. So, how you feeling? Is it a bit easier with the second one coming out, mate, or is there a bit more pressure?
Or I guess like you can think about it like your own personal pressure. Like I want to outdo myself from the prior record. I guess when it comes to just being creative, like no, I wouldn't say like the pressure of like pressuring myself to do something because it all kind of flows naturally when you're feeling like in the moment. Yeah, like it's yeah, I'm just thrilled it sort of just came about as it did without putting pressure on ourselves, I guess. So yeah, that's I guess that's how we all would feel about it.
Yeah, for sure, man. So dive into it a bit more, bit deeper from the musical point of view, mate, and then tell us what you were going for with it.
Or that's always an interesting one to think of when it's instrumental because sometimes it could just be like as simple as that's a cool riff. I'm just going to work on that cool riff. I guess what we were always trying to do is see what we can explore more. So for this record, there's a lot more elements from actual live musicians that aren't from the band. Like we've incorporated some live trumpet and trombone, which is a new element to our recordings, which we think is a next step to it while still staying true to our roots. We also recorded with a bass VI, which is like halfway to a guitar, which we've
Okay.
never done before. Which, like, I guess being the bass band, we try to stay like just for the joke, I guess, of never incorporating a guitar, but we got halfway there on this record, which was good fun.
How did it actually feel doing that, bro? Like you say, you're breaking your own number one cardinal rule by getting close to getting that on there, man. So how did it feel using it? Was it a good experience?
Yeah, well, like there was just some parts to the music where, like, say we wanted like a big, beautiful ringing out chord. It was like this sounds good on our bass, but imagine if we did it like on like some thinner strings, for example, but it's still tuned to a bass. That sort of made it obvious that we needed to go down that route.
And just today, mate, you released the single "Will o' the Wisp," which the press release says is your most progressive song to date. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I definitely think so, actually. I guess definition of progressive can change for everybody, but for this track, it feels the most story like it's following a story. Like the music video obviously has its own story, so that might assist people in thinking that. But my interpretation of listening to the track, it's like kind of taking you through different like levels of like a game, for example. It's kind of like progressing further and further until the end, which like I always seem to associate progressive music with like storytelling through music. So yeah, that's my sort of assessment of that track.
I'll run with that one, brother.
Thank you.
And you've also released the singles Matrice's Base Camp and Phat Mackerel. So
Yeah,
would those four together, would they be a good summation sonically of the album, mate, or is there more to it?
there's it's I'd say it's a good like those singles. Yeah, we did kind of like choose them as a team to be like different sides to the album, I guess. Like you got some, like as you mentioned, progressive for that song, and then Matrices, the previous one we released like a month or so ago, was more of the technical heavy side we could do. And then yeah, Fat Mackerel again was like almost like a metal song, like a short metal song, which was cool. But and then Basecamp was like trending more towards what I'd call a rock anthem almost. So yeah, I think it's a good starting point, but the other four tracks on the record do explore a few different things as well. So
Right.
yeah, I think each track has its own place on the album.
I suppose as an instrumental band too, mate, like choosing singles will be a bit more difficult for you because like the instrumental music sort of it goes more on moods and feels and groove rather than some, the lyrics catching you for it. So is it a longer process selecting what songs you think would best resonate with people?
Sometimes it can. Like the way I like to think about it, and it's obviously a different thing for everybody, but I find like being the one who composed a song, I usually try and then like say I've composed a song, I'll usually try and not be the one to be say that's a single because you're so biased towards it, right? You're like, yo, it's my song, like that's a single worthy song. It's just the way you naturally think. Um, but I find like what excites you the most when you listen to the full album, like usually that's a telling point, personally at least. And then if everyone kind of seems to have a similar opinion on a song, then you're usually pretty confident that that could be a single.
Oh. So how would you say overall that the law of augmenting returns differs musically to your 2021 debut album Escapades?
Or like differently, yeah. I haven't actually thought about that. It's I think we've just kind of expanded what we know. Like we've all matured. Like we're 3 years older since then. Like we kind of like mature. You refine your own sound, and you sort of know what you want to tell a bit more. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we've added more live musicians to this record, which kind of enhances, like, more opinions, I guess, have gone into the creative process. So I think it's a more like mature album, if that makes sense. Is that good? I don't know. Some people like the immature style of writing, but like, yeah, for me myself, like I think it's a polished like composition. Yeah, which is
You're
definitely what
actually
we strive to do.
sounding more mature and more polished in this phone call, mate. So, but we'll talk to that.
Yeah, amazing. 3 years does it.
It does indeed. Now, another thing that the press release says, mate, it says that you've pushed your creative boundaries to unprecedented heights on this new album. So, would you agree with that statement? And if so, how?
Unprecedented heights. Like, I guess if you think about that, like if you told us this was the record we released 3 years ago, I'd probably be like, wow, I wouldn't have
Yeah,
considered
true.
doing anything like that. Um, yeah, like I guess it's yeah, like when you make your own record, you just do what you do. But then when you look back on it, like maybe a year later or a year and a half later, like because we actually did record this record, we started in January last year, so it's been a long process. But something I think makes like me confident still releasing these songs now is like they still feel fresh to me a year and a half later. So when they're fresh to someone now, it's still going to be strong. Um, so yeah, I feel like that kind of thought really makes me feel like we have pushed those heights, and like now I think like what can we do after that? It's yeah, you always try and push the banjo, I guess. But yeah, I think when we did create these songs, it was at the time the Omnific's like what we were all trying to say musically.
And you also actually reassembled the same production team that you used on Escapades, mate. So, how important was having that team back together, I guess, in the final outcome?
Yeah, well, I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. Like we were just super stoked on what we had with Escapades, and like we knew we'd be able to get what we wanted with the same team because they nailed it the first time around, and again they've nailed it this time around, which has been yeah exactly what we wanted.
Oh. And you touched on this a bit before, man, but you've got a few guest spots on the album. So you've got Tim Warwick and Luke Taylor from Heartline. There's Kai Den Hertog and Rowan Sharma, mate. So why choose those guys to bring onto the album, and what did they sort of bring to the overall sound?
So, I'll start with Tim. So Tim's probably the least progressive of them all. He's actually like I'd say it's just like a barbershop style singer, which we used for the start of the record. And he's phenomenal. He's got a YouTube channel and everything, doing really well. And fortunately, like I sent him the concept we wanted, and he was all on board. So that I feel like the opening to the record is something really unique to like all prog music. Like I've never heard anything like it. So yeah, his addition to this album was like something I think we'd never be able to achieve without someone like having him on board. So yeah, he's the very first thing you hear when you press play on the records. That's cool. Yeah, Charles Beartooth, he's the famous YouTuber. Have you heard of him before? Yeah, he's huge in the bass community. He's phenomenal. Like we ended up meeting him when we were over in America last November, but he had actually already recorded his part for the album, so it was just great to finally meet him. And his unbelievable abilities on playing on the bass, like really opened up this solo section to just be like, how far can you take the bass guitar, which is his expertise. So yeah, his solo is really cool for that. Kai's solo is like almost like a cinematic like piece. Because he filled in for us on bass in like November a couple years back, and like he's an exceptional bass player from Australia. And I was like, well, I'm gonna like give him a section of the record, just like kind of like paying him back for helping us out, and like he's taken the song to a new height as well. So yeah, that's he did exceptional for that. And then Rowan, we've written him down as featuring as a solo for the last track, which is like definitely his shining moment. But he also did a lot of the extra programming. So he's like a keyboardist. He played on, I think, half of the tracks on the record, just kind of thinking about things like we would never have thought of when it comes to say like a keyboard or a piano. So yeah, his input on that kind of took some of the programming to that level where we'd never be able to achieve.
Nice. Now, you're about to kick off a European tour over July and August, which will be your first ever summer festival run over there, mate. So it sounds pretty exciting.
Oh mate, the festivals are kind of like a dream when you start doing your doing your band. So, oh, actually having it being a reality is going to be like phenomenal. And some of the bands on those festivals, I think like Meshuggah's on one of them, which is like wow.
Man.
Yeah, can't wait.
How do you go overseas, man? Like, just like Australians are passionate as fuck about everything, but especially for their own bands and music, I guess. But how do you go as an instrumental band overseas? Like, does it take a bit to win people over sometimes, or?
Oh, I haven't thought about that. I think like in Europe, as you mentioned in Australia, people get around a lot of stuff. I say it's pretty similar in Europe. Like it's like a lot of people just love music for the sake of it being music, and like you showing up all the way from Australia and doing your thing, usually gets people's attention, which is cool. So yeah, like it's just been like it's always a great experience going over to Europe, which is going to be about our fourth time now, which is cool as.
Fuck yeah. And then you finish that up in August, my friend. So what do you got planned after that? You gonna do a home run?
Yeah. We've got something planned. I don't think it's announced yet, so I won't say anything. But yeah, we'll do some Australian stuff as well.
No worries at all. All right, Matt. Well, thanks for your time today, brother. The Law of Augmenting Returns is out June the 7th, and I was fortunate enough to have a listen before chatting with you today, mate. And very mature and polished.
Unreal. Thank you. I appreciate it, Chris.
No worries. Well, mate, no, she's a fucking cracker of an album, bro. So hopefully she gets the respect she deserves.
I appreciate that, man. Appreciate that.